This Saturday episode of New Politics was released on the 13th of June, 2026, and produced on the lands of the Wangal and Gadigal people.
One Nation has only got 2 lower house MPs in federal parliament. They've got a leader who's inarticulate. The few policies that they have will never really work, yet they're currently leading in the opinion polls. I really think we need to work out what's going on. I'm Eddie Djokovic.
I'm David Lewis. All of this is coming up in this big episode of New Politics.
And if you're listening in and haven't subscribed to our website at New Politics, you're missing out on half of what we do. There's regular articles and analysis of this strange world of politics. It's all free, and you can subscribe at newpolitics.com.au. And of course, if you do want to support us, it's just $5 per month at Patreon and Substack, and all of this is a good way to support independent journalism.
Chant that reflects the mood on this side of the road.
Migrants are welcome, racists are not!
A fiery protest against One Nation leader Pauline Hanson during her visit to Perth.
Pauline Hanson, take your racist air out!
A tit-for-tat exchange of chants.
A big welcome to our Senator Pauline Hanson.
The senator telling supporters she's offering freedom and a path to home ownership, while rejecting claims her views are racist.
We've actually seen people come into this country that are not compatible, shouldn't be here, and they shouldn't be allowed in the first place.
She has no policies. She's only attended the Senate 12% of the time, so 88% of the time she's not there. She's barely articulate.
And these solutions that they're offering are two-dimensional.
The intense security and the size of the crowd protest is a sign that One Nation's message is cutting through and gaining attention. And it's also showing that the political landscape is shifting.
We've been asked about One Nation leading in the primary votes in recent opinion polls, and they are leading in 3 opinion polls from YouGov, Roy Morgan and Redbridge. And in some of the other opinion polls are not far behind the lead as well. And opinion polls, well, they always mean something, but 2 years before an election, they don't mean very much at all. But I think the bigger issue is that we haven't seen this type of situation in federal politics for a very long time, and probably not since the first 10 years of federation until it started morphing into that 2-party system that we have today. And it's been like this for a long time, either Labor on one side or the Liberal Party in one form or another since the 1930s. I think it was the United Australia Party before the Liberal Party. So what's happening now is a different dynamic that not many of us would be familiar with. And there's also that perception that this is going to be the high watermark for One Nation at this stage. But the point is that we don't know whether that's going to be the case or not, because it's all uncharted territory at the moment. But it's also, I think, a high wire act for One Nation, because they're only one scandal away from all of this support washing away. And that's been the history of One Nation over the past 30 years. They just cannot work together as a team, and that might be the ultimate failing of One Nation. And they've got a leader who thinks that it's all about her. It possibly is, but we've found that political parties that are based around the personality of the one leader, they tend to fall apart.
Yeah, it's highly unlikely that any urban seat will vote for a One Nation candidate. They might preference them. It's highly unlikely that One Nation now starting to attract the type of ambitious politician who will chafe against the constitutional One Nation, basically saying Pauline Hanson is leader for life. You don't like it? Plenty of other parties around. Go join the Democrats or what have you.
Oh, but I think it's also a question of what that 29% of people who are, when they're asked in opinion polls, they're not voting for One Nation at the moment. They're just being asked in opinion polls, 29%. It's just a question of where those 29% are coming from.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think they're inner city, and you need the inner cities to win. You need a cross-section of all segments of Australian society. You can't just be an inner city. This is the Greens' perceived issue, that they're not seen as a rural, even though they've got a lot of support in the rural areas. When it gets to the vote, oh no, the Greens are urban, so we better vote for what have you. When One Nation's the exact opposite problem in that they're not seen as an urban party. And you'd find it hard to believe that somewhere like the seat of Graindler or the seat of Watson or the seat of Reid in Sydney, which are very multicultural, would vote for a party that says we don't want you here. You shouldn't have come, and we're going to make sure that none of your friends or family can come. And of course, Pauline Hanson is not known for her thoughtful, considered and arguable takes on Australian society. She will almost certainly say or do something, or one of her candidates will be caught with their hand in the till or what have you, or again...
Well, I suspect that there might be quite a few hands in the till.
And again, the man who won Suzanne Lee's seat of Farrer, David Farley, has a 70% chance that he will be an independent by the time of the next election. And that's true of all. On the bright side, there's a 30% chance he won't, but that's true of all One Nation. One Nation might implode again. It seems to me that Pauline Hanson has the further away you get from Canberra, the bigger her reputation becomes. But when you start to work with professional public servants and politicians, her reputation is much lower, shall we say. The fact that with 2 years to go, I don't think we need to be too worried about One Nation. Wary, yes. Concerned, sure. But there's nothing to suggest that they're going to even become the next opposition.
They are a far-right party, and that's the issue that concerns a lot of progressive people. But we've been told off by some people for suggesting that Pauline Hanson just doesn't have the gravitas, and I think that's actually true. So it's just a question of what does all this represent at this particular point of time? Why is One Nation leading in the primary vote? And for me, I don't think that all of those people that are saying, oh yes, I'm going to vote one for One Nation, I don't think they're all far right people. I could be wrong about that because I haven't seen the full research about that. But my feeling is that it reflects this deeper dissatisfaction with the political system rather than a vote of dissent based on this particular ideology. And it's essentially a dead or a useless ideology anyway. And it's also partially this nostalgia for an Australia that really never existed. And so it's just hard to know exactly what this is at the moment. But yeah, we have to treat it seriously because One Nation is leading in the opinion polls. And if that's the will of the people, I'm not sure if it actually will be the will of the people on election day in 2 years' time. But that's something that we do have to take seriously, I guess. We just do have to inspect and see what's going on there.
Yeah, if they're still polling like this closer to the election, then we worry. But
well, it might also end up being a situation where it's similar to the South Australian election where they're cannibalising the vote of the Liberal Party and what One Nation ends up doing is dragging both One Nation and the Liberal Party down so that neither of them, they get a high primary vote collectively, but they just don't win enough seats. So that's always going to be the issue.
Of course, politics and nature abhor a vacuum. So I don't know what the next opposition is going to look like, except it's going to be a motley rabble of right-wing lunatics trying to ignore more moderate and sane voices. Pretty sure that the Labor Party is sitting back thinking we don't need to do very much here.
Well, I think they always need to be aware of what's going on politically. But I think to look at the future of One Nation, we also have to look at its history because they've got that tradition of not being able to work with each other. So and there was 30 years ago or 28 years ago, but when they won 25% of the primary vote in the Queensland state election, they ended up getting 11 members of state parliament as well. That dissipated very quickly because they ended up attracting the sort of people who are not really suited for Parliament or for politics. They put their hand up and think, oh, this is going to be pretty easy. And then they get into Parliament and they think, God, I can't work with these other people. I can't stand these other people that are in my party. And then to rebut that criticism, a lot of people have said, how is that process any different to other political parties? Because Labor and the LNP, they've got a lot of people that can't work with each other, but at least they put up the semblance of being able to work with each other. And they've got the history and tradition of being able to work with each other, whereas One Nation doesn't have that. And also, a lot of the political parties have got seat warmers that just make up the numbers and do not very much when they're actually in Parliament. But my feeling is that One Nation, they've only got 2 members of Parliament at the moment in the lower house federally. If they get more at the next election, probably end up being the same, although probably a lot more unstable, based on the previous history.
Paul Keating famously said, you want a friend in Canberra, get a dog. Paul Hasluck put it as the shifting strands of allegiance. You work with the people that you need to work with at the time to get things done. So we've seen odd bedfellows. The Greens working with the Liberal Party, for example. Maybe that's a bit unfair. The Greens working with...
But the Greens were in coalition with the Liberal Party in Tasmania.
Yeah.
For a little, It was only a short period of time, but that was a very unusual arrangement.
Yep. And we've seen in the Senate One Nation siding with the Labor Party to block certain things that they didn't want the Liberal government getting through. And these things last as long as they last. Sometimes they last forever. The Country Party going into coalition with the Nationalist Party because the Country Party were more worried about urban communism than they were about urban capitalism, even though the Country Party were agrarian socialists. But that's how it happened. Yeah, the One Nation hasn't attracted in a way that the Greens has, in a way that obviously Liberal and Labor and the Nationals, that professional class of people who are aware of the reality of politics, I think. Now, I know that one of the complaints that many of us had, and we've had it too, is professional politicians who've haven't helped in general how government runs in Australia. But having said that, the idea that people are smart enough to know that you might not agree with the person on the other side, but we have to find common ground to stop whatever's happening from someone else. And sometimes, of course, with the Senate committee system, which is why the Senate tends to be calmer, you get to sit in committees with people and, actually, this person is not such a bad, she's an okay person. I don't agree with her, but we can talk and we can make good deals, presumably, and be productive members of Parliament. I think one of the main things, and I'm just jumping ahead here, Pauline has learnt nothing in Parliament. She still behaves like that firebrand. She's learnt a little bit about public presentation and things, but she hasn't adjusted her views on things like immigration because she's learnt that immigrants have actually been exceptionally good for Australia. The argument is still no immigration, not we need to look at the subtle ideas of how many people do we let in and where do we let them in from and we need less, which she's still really making the same arguments that she did in 1996. It's just that she keeps changing. She's gone from Asian people to African people. Now she's on Middle Eastern people, or as she calls them, Muslims.
And that's been her shtick for a long time, and it's almost like it is a broken record, but it's a broken record that seems to work quite well for her, and I guess she's not going to be... Like, she's a very limited person as far as a politician is concerned, as far as her intellectual abilities are concerned, or being, I'm not being mean or nasty here, but she's not a well-read person. She just hasn't got any ideological sort of gravitas behind her, except for anti-immigration and all that sort of stuff. And it's kicking down on people as well. So if that's what the 29% of people support, well, good luck to them. But that's not the sort of politics that gets you anywhere, really. But Pauline Hanson says that she's actually ready to be the Prime Minister. Here she is speaking on Sky News during the week.
Do you want to be Prime Minister, Pauline Hanson?
Do I want to be Prime Minister?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, I won't knock the job because I believe that I have the ability to do it. I'm not going to underestimate myself or say, no, I can't do it, because, have a look at what we've got now. Really, honestly, and that's why we're in a mess. So whether it's Pauline Hanson as Prime Minister or we've got someone else to take on that job to drive the factor, I will look at who's the best person to do it.
Do you have confidence you would have a team or could pull together a team that could form a competent cabinet?
You bet I do. I certainly do. I'm getting a great team around me, and even those members of Parliament that I have now. Barnaby Joyce, he's got a spring in his step. He's really happy to be part of the party. He's got a voice. He's out there. And we've got a great team. And as I said, I got Corey Bernardi for South Australia. What a great leader he is.
So Pauline Hanson as Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce as Deputy Prime Minister, Corey Bernardi, I don't know, maybe Treasurer. Well, good luck with all of that. And when you hear this sort of stuff, it just sounds a lot like hubris as well. Like it's arrogance, hubris, and generally the Australian public doesn't like that sort of stuff anyway, irrespective of where it comes from. But for me, it's got the shades of Bronwyn Bishop from the 90s, where she was actually ahead in the polls as far as the potential leader for the Liberal Party and also for Prime Ministership as well. So she was in the Senate up until 1994. She ran that campaign about Bronwyn Bishop to become the Prime Minister and all that sort of stuff. Then she went into the House of Representatives. She won a lower house seat, I think it was the seat of McKellar, but then found out that the House of Representatives is quite different to the Senate. It's radically different to the Senate, and it's also similar to the Joe for PM sort of process in 1987 as well. Same sort of stuff where these people end up being, they've got their populist rhetoric, it's all rubbish. And then Joe Bjelke-Petersen didn't get anywhere near being Prime Minister, and Bronwyn Bishop, she went into the House of Representatives, did nothing there. But it's just a lot harder in the House of Representatives. And so Pauline Hanson, well, first of all, she's got to get from the Senate into the House of Representatives. Who knows where that seat's going to be. And then for One Nation, they have to win enough seats to either become the opposition. You know, it's hard to go from 2 seats to 76 anyway to form government. But yeah, it's hard to know where this is going to happen. If One Nation does end up winning a substantial amount of seats, I suspect that it's going to be very similar to the South Australian election that occurred a few months ago. It'll be very similar to that. But if they do get a handful of seats, 10, 15, 20 or something like that, who knows? Pauline Hanson might be the one. She might be one of those people that moves from the Senate to the lower house. But where's that going to be? Is it going to be in New South Wales? Who knows? People generally don't like it when people move interstate, or if they don't live in that particular seat and then run for office. So who's going to give way for her as well? So it's a tough ask. I find it hard to accept or hard to believe that that's where it's going to end up. But you never know. We're in crazy times at the moment.
I think the Bronwyn Bishop analogy or comparison is a good one, in that Bronwyn, from memory, performed well asking an unprepared public servant some difficult questions, and then she didn't. She was a bit more better placed than Pauline in that she had a semi-coherent philosophical policy, which Pauline doesn't. Pauline is all what she doesn't want. And none of
also a member of a substantial party in the Liberal Party at that particular time. It's not now.
Seat of McKellar and held it for a long time, but couldn't really build on it. Her shortcomings in the House of Reps became very quickly. I don't think she even was nominated as deputy leader, was she?
No.
And she came in at the right time where there was that turmoil. It was Howard, it was Peacock, it was Downer, it was Howard. And a more capable politician maybe could have done something. She really split the right vote and lost a lot of her support quickly. And yeah, she ended up being minister for a few things, but never a terribly good minister or a useful minister. Pauline, of course, won't have had ministerial experience if she were to become Prime Minister. And she'd find a House of Representatives career against a disciplined Labor Party. And this is the other thing she's got to fight, that the Labor Party, for all the things we say in criticism of them, is an extremely disciplined machine at the moment. There are no leaks. There are no major scandals. There's been a few here and there. Michelle Rowland's career hasn't been stellar, let's say, but these haven't been damaging to the government as such. Pauline will have to face down a disciplined Labor opposition, presumably, that has spent decades honing political skills that Pauline's never bothered. Her first question time will be a bloodbath.
Well, if it ends up getting to that. But the other point is...
Which won't get there, but... You know.
Yeah. But the other point is that the Australian electorate, it's neither hard right nor hard left. Like, everything congregates around the centre of politics. Now, it's either slightly centre left. I don't think the Labor government at the moment is centre left, but it gravitates around the centre. It's either centre left or centre right. And politics in Australia, anyway, generally occupies the middle ground. And I think One Nation is just too extreme for too many people. Yeah. And 29% of that primary vote, as I mentioned before, not all of those people would be extremists. They've had enough of the political system at the moment. They probably don't know very much about One Nation anyway, in the same way as people that might vote for the Labor Party might not know that much about the Labor Party, but it's part of that sort of tribal aspect of politics. That's the colour that you go for. And whether it's red, green, blue or now orange, people don't take that much of an interest in politics. But not all of those people would be those extremists that Pauline Hanson or being too hard right or extreme right or far right or whatever you want to call it. But politics, as I mentioned, it's in the middle ground. That's where everything needs to exist for one nation. And because they're too extreme for too many people, I think that's probably what's going to be the end result when it's in the lead up to the next election. Now, it's 2 years away, so we don't need to discuss it too much. As I mentioned before, opinion polls register what exists today, but they're not very good at predicting the future.
No, and it's an interesting anomaly. And looking at the 126 years of Australian Federation, it's an interesting anomaly. But it's not a thing to be overly concerned with at the moment. The other thing too is demographics are going to beat up. I can't remember if we discussed this or not, but the highest population of people born outside of Australia and who live here is now from India, not from Britain. This is, in one sense, neither here or there. In another sense, it shows just how adaptable Australia is. But they're at least a generation from saying we don't want any more immigrants, particularly from India. And if Pauline's rhetoric goes that way, it will get very bad for her very quickly.
That's it for this episode of New Politics. Thanks for listening in. And if you value independent journalism without the influence of corporate backing, join New Politics at newpolitics.com.au and support us directly. It's just $5 per month, and we always try to keep it very simple. If you like what we do, please send some support our way. It keeps our commitment to independent journalism ticking along. I'm Eddie Djokovic. Thanks for listening in, and it's goodbye to our listeners.
I'm David Lewis. We'll see you next time.